Over the last 20 years, the Manitoba livestock sector has invested over $1.1 million into more than 21 research projects on the subject of manure odor management and mitigation in our province.
Probably the most important thing that the public should understand is that the livestock industry is aware that odors are an issue to people living in rural communities. It is something that all livestock producers are doing their best to manage.
Before we can properly manage odor, we must be able to measure and evaluate it. Over 168 odor compounds have been identified in livestock odors.
People actually will respond to the same chemical in different ways, sometimes completely different way. So to quantify odor, you have to measure the chemicals in the air, but you also have to consider people's perception to odor.
Research projects have studied the different measurement and evaluation technologies.
We've been using an instrument we call olfactometer, which actually relies on a human nose.
Studies have shown that the human olfactory sense, or the nose, is still the most effective measurement tool.
The nasal ranger actually is a trained people who can actually sniff odor. So the way we do it is we actually give a reference odor to train people. Then they can tell a stronger chemical than a weaker chemical.
This research has resulted in the development of an odor dispersion model.
When odor is released from a facility, it'll flow with the wind. So that process is what we call the dispersion. So in order to assess the odor impact, we have to know how far the odor traveled, and at a certain distance away from the facility, if the odor is still strong enough to actually cause any negative impact. So we developed this computer model which uses the weather data to actually predict the traveling of the odor to the surrounding areas. There are three main sources for odor: building and manure storage and land application of manure. In Manitoba, manure injection is commonly being used. That actually almost eliminates the odor from land application because basically you bury the manure in the ground.
Manure additive products have also been examined.
Manure additives have not shown to be very effective at controlling odors. There have been many different companies that have been marketing manure additives, and they tend to work fairly well in the lab, but when you apply them to actual farm scale, they do not give you a really good result.
For this reason, facility design has been the focus of more recent study, with in-barn manure handling systems extensively analyzed.
Basic ones are actually just looking at the routine operations of the barn, and if you do a good job in housekeeping and keep the floor clean and remove your manure as often as you can, that actually would help to reduce odor emission.
There are many things that have been tried to control and manage odors from livestock operations from the buildings themselves. Some of those that are currently being used are starting out with good barn design and good ventilation within the building. Other people have looked at research into biofilters and other methods of separating the manure within the building so that the liquids and the solids are going to different locations, and that helps to control odors as well.
Biofiltration technologies have been used with some success in other industries and jurisdictions, but require continued research in Manitoba to confirm they are viable in our harsh climatic conditions.
Biofilter actually has been shown it's very effective in removing odor. We're looking at probably about 80% efficiency. Also, biofilter, it's relatively easy to build and low cost, and the management is relatively straightforward.
Challenges that we've seen in Manitoba for biofilters is the dust and continuous washing of the biofilter. In the wintertime, we probably wouldn't use the biofilter because of the cold temperatures and the freezing up of the biofilter itself.
With regards to manure storage, odor emission rates vary widely among different facilities and even within the same types of facilities.
Manure storages are a source of odor because of the gases that are produced and distributed from the manure storage itself. Earthen manure storages have a much larger footprint, and so the total amount of gases coming off of it are much greater than either smaller storages or under barn storages.
Many research projects studying the effectiveness of earth and manure storage covers have been conducted, but covers have not been widely adopted in Manitoba, largely due to significant operational and maintenance challenges.
Covering manure storage with heavy plastic, then that actually reduces the odor emission, but you don't have access to manure. When you try to pump the manure, it becomes a challenge. You could use a porous material, such as straw. You basically chop the straw and then spray it. You see you have a straw cover, and straw will sink, and you have to reapply. And once it sinks, then it may affect the manure pumping, because then you got straw mixed up with the manure, it becomes difficult to pump.
Manitoba has a unique advantage over some other livestock production regions.
Manitoba's climate affects odor management in the wintertime because of the freezing over of the manure storages. Odors coming from manure storages are eliminated almost completely. Also, in the wintertime, there are very few fans exhausting from livestock buildings, and so the total volume of odorous air coming from the building is minimized.
The most effective way to mitigate odor, or the perception of odor, is to mandate minimum setback distances between livestock operations and neighboring communities and residences. All municipalities have minimum setback distances in their zoning bylaws, based upon provincially set standards. Producers commonly plant shelter belts around livestock facilities in order to help minimize odor dispersion.
It deflects the odor upwards, so when the odor gets higher in the air, then when it comes down, it's already been diluted. The trees in the windbreak can actually trap dust, which actually is an odor carrier. A lot of odor compounds actually is attached to dust particles. If those dust particles is trapped in the trees, then it's going to reduce the odor emission. The other side actually is more from the perception point of view. When people see a hog barn or see a manure storage, that might trigger the odor in their brain. But windbreak will prevent people from seeing the actual odor source. So that psychologically would actually help mitigate odor impact. A pig barn is so complicated, so many different factors you have to consider. Whatever the technology you use, you have to test them in the real world conditions. Odor, it's an environmental nuisance, and if a facility is well managed, if we maintain the proper setback distance, we could minimize odor impact to the level, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Odor perception is a big issue for people who have no experience with hog or livestock operations. And it's usually recognized that putting up shelter belts and keeping a nice clean look to your yard and maintaining things, generally if it looks good, it's generally felt that odors and issues coming from the operation are much reduced.
For more information about the research that has been done in Manitoba on manure odor management and mitigation, please visit manitobapork.com.